Welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast.
Great to be here, ready to dive into Pine Valley.
Absolutely. Today, we're looking at a show that was, well, more than just a soap opera. It was All My Children, a true cultural touchstone for decades.
For sure. Over 40 years of Pine Valley drama, we've gathered a ton of material, articles, interviews, historical accounts to really get under the skin of this show.
Yeah, we're not just talking memories, though there are plenty of those. We want to dig into the facts, the choices made behind the scenes, the controversies, too.
And really understand what gave it that incredible staying power. Why did people connect so deeply?
Exactly. Think of this as your comprehensive guide to All My Children. We're going to unpack the big moments, the groundbreaking stories, those unforgettable characters.
And all the shifts happening backstage that shaped what we saw on screen. It's quite a story.
It really is. So where do we start? I guess with the visionary behind it all.
Agnes Nixon. A legend, really. Back in the 1960s, she had this kernel of an idea.
What was the core concept?
She envisioned a show that felt maybe a bit lighter than some other soaps, focused on young love, but crucially also tackled social issues head-on. Things other shows weren't really touching.
And she already had a track record, right? She'd written for major soaps.
Oh yeah, Search for Tomorrow, Guiding Light. She knew the genre inside out. All My Children was her personal project, though. She wrote up a show Bible, the whole plan.
And it wasn't an easy sell at first.
Not at all. She pitched it to NBC, then CBS, even got Procter & Gamble involved to pitch NBC again. But nothing. It just didn't click for them initially.
Wow. It's hard to imagine All My Children and not getting an immediate green light.
Right. But Nixon was resourceful. When she took over as head writer for Another World around 65, she didn't just shelve those ideas.
Did she repurpose them?
Kind of. She used Another World as a bit of a testing ground. Famously, she created Rachel Davis there.
I've heard this. Rachel was like a proto-Erica Kane.
Exactly. Nixon herself said Rachel was a precursor to the public for Erica. She saw a key similarity in them.
Which was
this relentless chasing of some kind of elusive dream, that core drive. It was baked into the Erica concept from the start.
That depth definitely shows. So the All My Children Bible is sitting there, waiting. What finally made it happen?
Nixon created One Life to Live for ABC, which launched in '68 and did really well.
So success begets success.
Pretty much. ABC saw One Life to Live taking off and basically asked Nixon, okay, what else you got?
And that's when she could dust off the All My Children Bible.
And finally bring Erica Kane home to Pine Valley.
Even the title, All My Children, has that poem associated with it, doesn't it, from the opening credits?
Yeah, the one that scrolls through the photo album in the original opening. The great and the least, the rich and the poor, the weak and the strong.
In sickness and in health, in joy and sorrow, in tragedy and triumph, you are all my children. It really sets a tone.
It does. It signals that this show isn't just about one family or one social class. It's about the whole community, all these interconnected lives, all equally important, a real tapestry.
A powerful statement. So finally, after all that waiting, All My Children premieres. When was that?
January 5th, 1970. And it replaced a game show, Dreamhouse.
Quite the shift. Okay, so the 70s, those formative years, how did they kick things off?
Well, they made a smart move early on to get some eyeballs on the show. They brought in a known name from another soap.
Rosemary Prince,
Ugh.
from As the World Turns.
That's the one. Signed her as a special guest star for about 6 months. She played Amy Tyler, Ruth Martin's sister, a politically active character. It definitely helped leverage her existing fan base.
Smart. And the writing was consistent from the start.
Very. Because Agnes Nixon herself, or her hand-picked protege, Wisner Washam, was writing the show basically all through the 70s and into the early 80s.
So that original vision stayed strong.
Yeah, Washam was mentored specifically to take over, letting Nixon eventually step back a bit. Their shared goal was always that mix.
Yeah.
Topical social issues, but also humor.
And the setting, Pine Valley, Pennsylvania, it became so iconic. Was it always clearly defined?
It eventually became known as being modeled on those affluent suburbs near Philadelphia, like Rosemont or Penn Valley. But interestingly, the show didn't explicitly pin down its location and dialogue until sometime in the 80s.
A little mystery, but the core families were there from day one.
Absolutely. You had the Tylers, wealthy, often kind of snobby, led by the magnificent Ruth Warwick as Phoebe Tyler.
The Queen of Pine Valley. You always knew who she was.
Oh, completely. Then the Canes, Mona Kane, played by Frances Heflin, and her firecracker daughter, Erica, launched Susan Lucci into stardom.
And the Martins provided the stability.
Exactly. Joe and Ruth Martin, the doctor and nurse, played by Ray McDonnell and Mary Fickett, They were the show's moral center, the stable heart of the community.
And didn't ABC specifically ask for younger characters too?
They did. So we got the young lovers, Tara Martin and Phil Brent. Classic soap stuff.
But Erica got involved pretty quickly, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. Very early on, in a move that really defined her character, Erica tried to break up Tara and Phil. And how did she do it? By revealing the truth about Phil's parentage.
Who were his parents again?
Amy Tyler and Nick Davis. Erica weaponized that secret. It was pure selfishness. Classic Erica.
Already stirring the pot. So, despite this focus and these characters, the ratings weren't amazing right away.
No, started low, like 17th out of 19 soaps low.
Ouch.
But here's the thing. The audience grew. Every single year, they were building something special, connecting viewers to these characters, and it paid off.
And a big part of that connection was the show's willingness to tackle real-world issues, right? Like Vietnam.
Hugely important. They were one of the only soaps, maybe the only one, really integrating the Vietnam War into ongoing storylines in a meaningful way.
How did that play out?
You saw it dividing families. Phoebe Tyler and her sister Amy constantly clashed over the war. Amy was leading protests.
Wow.
When Amy left the show, Ruth Martin kind of picked up that mantle as the main anti-war voice.
And didn't Mary Fickett win an Emmy for that?
She did. History made. In 1972, she won the very first daytime Emmy ever given to a performer for acting, specifically for a powerful anti-war speech Ruth gave.
That's incredible. The first acting Emmy tied directly to social commentary on the show.
It really validated Nixon's whole approach. They also introduced Nurse Caroline Murray, a Vietnam vet dealing with flashbacks. PTSD, basically. Dr. Frank Grant helped her.
He was one of the first black leads, right?
Yes, introduced in 72. His wife Nancy came in 73. They were really pushing boundaries.
And then came the storyline of the early 70s, the one everyone talks about.
Erica Kane. May 1972. The terminated pregnancy.
This was huge. Pre-Roe v. Wade, first legal terminated pregnancy on TV.
Exactly. And the controversy wasn't just that it happened. It was Erica's reason.
Which was?
Explicitly stated. She didn't want to gain weight and lose her modeling contract. That added a whole other layer of complexity and, well, outrage for some.
I can only imagine the reaction.
Massive media coverage. And get this,
Yeah.
after Erica developed a potentially fatal infection from the procedure, actual doctors and nurses were apparently calling the ABC switchboards to offer medical advice.
No way. People were that invested.
Totally invested. And, despite the controversy, or maybe partly because of it, ratings shot up. This storyline cemented Erica as the show's undeniable, magnetic, sometimes infuriating center.
Beyond those big headlines, they were also building classic soap rivalries. Phoebe versus Mona.
Oh, epic. Started when Phoebe's husband, Charles Tyler, left her for Mona.
Phoebe
Did not take it well.
What did she do?
Oh, the works. Blackmail attempts. She even faked being paralyzed to try and stop the divorce.
Faking paralysis, that's pure soap gold.
Isn't it? And another interesting 70s storyline. Margot Flax Martin's facelift in 74.
That was unusual for the time, wasn't it?
Very. The actress playing Margot was actually considering getting one, so Nixon wrote it in. They explored the psychological side of it, not just the physical. One of the first times TV really did that.
Fascinating how they wove real life in. So by the end of the 70s, the show wasn't struggling anymore.
Nope, it was flying high, reached #1 in the ratings by 78, 79.
What fueled that surge?
New characters brought fresh energy. Donna Beck, a teenage prostitute, and her relationship with Dr. Chuck Tyler was a big hit.
And then some real heavy hitters arrived.
Oh, yeah. Palmer Courtland, aristocratic, complex, played brilliantly by James Mitchell, his quiet housekeeper, Myra Murdoch, his daughter Nina, and the heroic Dr. Cliff Warner.
Palmer was instantly iconic, always scheming. Didn't he try to break up Cliff and Nina?
Constantly. He told Nina she was going blind from her diabetes just to keep them apart. Classic Palmer manipulation.
Awful. And there was a big murder mystery, too.
Yeah, Cliff was framed for unaliving Sybil Thorne after she revealed he was the father of her son. Turned out Sean Cuddy did it.
And during that trial, wasn't there a huge reveal about Nina's mother?
The classic soap opera shocker.
Yeah.
Nina discovered her mother, Daisy Courtland, wasn't unalived after all.
Where was she?
Living right there in Pine Valley as Monique Johnville. And the kicker, Myra Murdoch, Palmer's housekeeper, was Daisy's mother.
Whoa, so Palmer's mother-in-law was his housekeeper? The connections?
That's what makes soaps tick. We also saw villains like Billy Clyde Tuggle and Ray Gardner introduced in this era. They added some real grit.
Now, before we leave the 70s, the lost episodes, that's such a shame.
It really is.
Yeah.
Standard practice back then, unfortunately. They taped on these big cartridges and just erase them to reuse the tapes. Daily television wasn't seen as something to preserve meticulously.
So most of the early stuff is just gone.
Pretty much everything before 76. A few black and white Keenskokes survived, almost by accident. One even aired in a special in 97. But the vast majority, lost to time.
I heard Agnes Nixon actually gave ABC some early ones she owned, hoping they'd be archived.
Yeah, the story goes they promised to archive them, but somehow they were lost in a fire or just erased anyway. A real loss for TV history and for fans.
Tragic. Okay, moving into the 1980s, often called the golden age for AMC, right? And for supertupples generally.
Absolutely. The show was just hitting its stride. A huge part of that was this incredible new generation of young characters.
Who are we talking about?
Greg Nelson, Jenny Gardner, Liza Colby, Amanda, the iconic Jessie Hubbard, and Angie Baxter. And of course, Tad Martin, all grown up and now legally Joe and Ruth's son.
These characters just clicked. The storylines took off. Liza trying to steal Greg from Jenny.
Huge triangle. And Greg and Jenny themselves. Pure, innocent young love. Viewers adored them.
And Jessie and Angie, they were groundbreaking.
Totally. An interracial super couple who were just immensely popular and beloved. Still rare on TV then. Their Summer in New York City storyline is legendary.
And the 80s gave us Tad the Cat.
Small Shekel. Oh, yes. He earned that nickname early on, getting involved with both Liza Colby and her mother, Marion.
That Tad.
He had that perfect mix, didn't he? Charm, bit of roguishness, but you always knew there was a good heart under there somewhere. Michael E. Knight was fantastic.
Definitely. And wasn't their mom introduced around then, too? For comic relief?
Opal. Yes, Jenny and Tad's biological mother. Her Glamorama salon became this wonderful hub of humor and, sort of, Pine Valley satire. Jill Larson really made that role her own later.
And then came the family that would become synonymous with Pine Valley power, alongside the Martins and Tylers.
The Chandlers. Headed by the formidable, ruthless Adam Chandler.
Played by the incredible David Canary.
And in a stroke of genius casting and writing, Adam had an identical twin brother, Stuart, also played by Canary.
Who was the complete opposite.
Totally. Stuart was kind, gentle, artistic, the conscience Adam often ignored. Canary playing both roles was just a masterclass. Adam became this dominant force while Stuart was the heart.
And Erica wasn't exactly fading away during all this.
Hardly. She was becoming even more famous within the show, writing her autobiography, Raising Cain.
And it became a movie starring herself. So meta.
Right. And she still had juicy drama, like being accused of murdering Kent Bogard by her supposed half-sister, Silver. Erica on the run in disguise. Classic soap.
But the 80s weren't just about romance and melodrama. AMC kept pushing social boundaries. 1983 was a big one.
The first story about homosexuality on an American soap.
With Devin McSadden and her therapist, Lynn Carson.
Exactly. Lynn was openly lesbian. While she didn't return Devin's romantic feelings, the storyline itself, exploring Devin's confusion and Lynn's identity, was incredibly brave for the time.
They also tackled drug addiction.
Yeah, Mark Dalton's cocaine addiction. They showed his half-sister Erica staging this really intense, tough love intervention. Very raw.
And then the AIDS crisis, 1987, that must have been huge.
It was monumental. So much fear and misinformation out there then. They introduced Cindy Parker, who fell in love with Stuart.
And she had AIDS.
Yes, contracted from her late husband, who used IV drugs. The show was careful and responsible. They used Dr. Angie Hubbard to explain to viewers how the disease was actually transmitted and how it wasn't.
Using the drama for public health education.
A really powerful use of the platform. Cindy faced terrible prejudice, attacked by a hate group led by Sky Chandler, of all people.
Wow.
But her love story with Stuart, their marriage, him adopting her son, Scott.
Yeah.
It was incredibly moving. Her death in early '89, that episode was one of the most watched ever for the show. It showed how much that story resonated.
The late 80s also saw some big changes behind the camera. Felicia Minnie Burr came in as executive producer.
Yes, early '89. She'd worked there before. She oversaw some popular stuff, like that big baby swap with Adam, Brooke, Tad, and Dixie. And Cecily and Nico were a popular couple then, though they didn't last long.
But she also made some controversial casting decisions.
Slight chuckle. It's putting it mildly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she fired several really popular long-term actors. Peter Bergman as Cliff Warner, Ellen Wheeler as Karen Cindy, Robert Gentry as Ross Chandler.
That didn't go over well.
Not with fans, and not even with some of the remaining cast. Debbie Morgan, Angie, was reportedly very upset about Bergman's firing, as it killed a potential Angie Cliff story. She left for generations, partly because of it.
Wow.
And Taylor Miller, Nina, came back just for a short stint, basically, to write Cliff out, which she wasn't thrilled about.
And the Opal recast.
Right. Dorothy Lyman, the original Emmy-winning Opal, wasn't brought back. Jill Larson was cast. Lyman made it known she was disappointed she wasn't even asked. These things matter to the audience. They really do. People get attached.
Deeply.
So despite that turbulence, heading into the 90s, how was the show doing? Bear was still EP, and Megan McTavish became head writer.
Yeah, McTavish took over in 92, though she'd been writing there since 87. Agnes Nixon was overseeing as executive head writer. And actually, ratings initially went up a bit, hitting number 3 by 1990.
And they kept tackling social issues, right?
Yes, definitely. That remained a hallmark. They had acclaimed storylines about Molly's leukemia, Sierra Connor dealing with incest, Mona Kane's lung cancer, and one called Deconstruction, about racism. The soap press really praised those.
And the big dramatic plots kept coming, too.
Oh, yeah. Natalie in the Well, creepy. The Who Killed Will Cortland mystery was huge. Willow Lake Acres, about a crooked nursing home, managed to be funny and serious. And Pine Valley got hit by a tornado. Standard soap disaster fare.
Chuckles. Beer also revisited Erica's father, Eric Kane. But the biggest story of the early 90s had to be Kendall Hart.
Oh, absolutely. 1993. Sarah Michelle Gellar arrives. And the massive retcon. Kendall is Erica's daughter.
No.
The daughter Erica gave up for adoption years ago. This required rewriting Erica's history, didn't it?
Significantly. And in a very dark way. It was revealed Erica conceived Kendall after being raped on her 14th birthday by Richard Fields, a friend of her father's.
That's incredibly heavy and explains so much about why she gave the baby up.
Exactly. It added this layer of trauma and secrecy to Erica's past. And Kendall didn't just arrive wanting a happy reunion.
No, she was complicated, seeking approval, but also revenge.
Yeah, deep resentment for being abandoned. Their relationship was electric, full of conflict and pain. Sarah Michelle Gellar was just dynamite. They called her the second coming of Erica.
High praise indeed. She made a massive mark before leaving in 95. The 90s also brought new families into the mix.
The Santos family, the Dillons, the Frys, the Kiefers, they all became part of the Pine Valley fabric.
And we saw enduring couples form or solidify. Tad and Dixie, of course. Dimitri and Erica. Trevor and Natalie. Haley and Brian. Brooke and Edmund Gray.
Lots of romance. But by the mid-90s, some criticism started creeping in about the storytelling.
McTavish's writing.
Yeah, some felt it became a bit too reliant on gimmicks. Lots of actors playing dual roles, frequent bomb plots, that kind of thing.
And then something external hit all the soaps hard.
The O.J. Simpson trial. Those constant preemptions in 94, 95 really disrupted viewing habits and hurt ratings across the board, including AMC.
Which led to another writing change.
Yep. McTavish was out in spring 95. Lorraine Broderick, a former head writer, came back under Bear.
And that period was well received.
Generally, yes. Seen as a return to more character-driven, socially relevant stories, like Erica's powerful drug addiction storyline.
Where she went to the Betty Ford Center. I remember that.
Very impactful. And they did a storyline about homophobia involving a gay high school student and his teacher, still pushing boundaries.
So good stories, but maybe ratings didn't bounce back enough.
Seems like it. Ratings were kind of stagnant, and ABC didn't renew Bear's contract. Francesca James, who had actually acted on the show years before, took over as EP in 96.
And she brought in different kinds of stories.
A bit. There was a voodoo arc with Noah and Julia, a kind of fantasy story involving Myrtle and Santa Claus, and another baby kidnapping plot for Erica.
But the writing revolving door kept spinning.
Unbelievably, yes.
Yeah.
Even though Broderick's team won 3 consecutive daytime Emmys for writing, she was replaced again in December 97. Guess who came back?
Not Megan McTavish.
The very same. Her 3rd tenure as head writer.
Wow. What was that period like?
The Bianca anorexia story, which Broderick started, aired then. But overall, it was seen as very plot-heavy again. Lots of twists that strained credulity, like bringing Erica's old flame Mike Roy back from the unalived.
Risky move. And another EP change in 98.
Jean Daddario Burke replaced Francesca James. The late 90s became rough. Storylines about ghosts, poison tattoos, Nazi art heists, a sperm switch.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, they were not well received. The show was actually voted worst of 1998 by Soap Opera Digest.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
It was a definite low point creatively. And, surprise, surprise, McTavish was fired again in early 99 as ratings slumped.
How many times is that now?
I think that was firing number 3 for her. ABC even persuaded Agnes Nixon to step back in briefly to try and steady the ship.
And key actors were leaving too.
Yeah, Michael Nader, Dimitri, James Keeberd, Trevor, Robin Mattson, Janet. It felt like the show was really adrift at the end of the decade.
So Entering the 2000s, how did they try to turn things around? Nixon was back consulting.
Right, and her instinct was, again, go back to what worked. A powerful, socially relevant story.
Which led to Bianca coming out.
Exactly. December 2000. That scene between Bianca and Erica where Bianca finally tells her mom she's a lesbian, it was instantly iconic.
The huge moment for TV, not just daytime.
Absolutely groundbreaking. There was some initial controversy, sure, but mostly it was praised by fans, by critics for how it was handled. And Eden Regal as Bianca, just phenomenal. She became a breakout star and a real icon for the LGBTQ plus community.
Another example of AMC leading the way on representation.
Definitely. The show also found new energy with pairings like Leo Dupress and Greenlee Smythe. Josh Duhamel and Rebecca Budig had incredible chemistry.
Richard Culleton was writing then. He created some popular characters.
Yeah, Frankie and Maggie Stone. He planned for Frankie to be unalived pretty quickly in a murder plot.
But viewers got really attached to the Bianca and Frankie romance, didn't they?
They really did. It developed quickly and powerfully.
Yeah.
So when Frankie was unalive after only about 3 months, some fans felt the show got cold feet about centering a lesbian romance.
Was that the reason?
Hard to say definitively, but that was the perception among some viewers. Culleton did cleverly bring the actress, Elizabeth Hendrickson, back as Frankie's identical twin sister, Maggie.
Ah, the twin sister saves the day. Bianca and Maggie became a popular pairing, too.
They did, but the staff changes continued. Guess who came back as head writer in 2003?
Please don't say McTavish again.
Slight pause. McTavish again, her 4th time. And Julie Hannon Carruthers took over as EP around the same time.
Unbelievable. And under this McTavish run, another difficult Bianca storyline.
Yes, the story where Bianca was graped. Very controversial, very tough for the character and for viewers.
So under Carruthers and McTavish 4.0, what was the strategy? Ratings were still up and down?
Yeah, fluctuating. The approach seemed to be throw a lot at the wall, create new characters, new couples, but also bring back fan favorites from the past constantly to try and lure viewers back.
Like who?
Well, J.R. Chandler and Babe Carey became a popular, volatile couple. Bianca and Maggie's story continued. They created Zack Slater and paired him with Kendall Hart, who was back played by Alicia Minshew by then. And familiar faces like Julia Santos and Janet Dillon returned.
They even had celebrity cameos. Rihanna.
Yep, Tonica Rae and Rihanna appeared in July 2006. Rihanna's appearance actually coincided with a storyline involving Josh Madden, Erica's son from that long-ago terminated pregnancy, learning his origins.
Wow. And Eden Regal returned as Bianca around then, too.
Yes, in 2006. She came back and was part of a storyline involving a transgender character, Zarf, who later transitioned and took the name Zoe. That was another complex, talked-about plot.
And then a return that got fans really excited, but ended badly.
Katie McLean as Dixie Cooney Martin. Huge return. People were thrilled.
But she wasn't back for long.
No. In January 2007, less than a year after she returned, they unalived her.
As part of that Satin Slayer serial killer storyline.
Yeah, exactly. She ate poisoned pancakes meant for Babe Carey. It was unintentional, but still. Unaliving Dixie, such a beloved heroine, so soon after bringing her back. Fans were furious. It felt like a slap in the face.
You'd see why. It seems disrespectful to the character and the audience.
It generated a lot of backlash. Around the same time, Susan Pratt returned as Barbara Montgomery. And then, guess what happened to Megan McTavish in May 2007?
Let me guess. Fired again.
Fired again. Reportedly due to viewer criticism, James Harmon Brown and Barbara Essenston took over writing duties.
And wasn't there controversy around Greenlee's return, too? Rebecca Budig came back?
Highly publicized return in late 2007. But the actress who had been recast in the role, Sabine Singh, was essentially just dropped very unceremoniously. Reports suggested she wasn't treated well, and that caused another wave of fan anger. It felt unfair.
Sounds like a messy period behind the scenes.
It does seem that way. But amidst all that, there was one return that was pure joy for fans.
Jesse and Angie?
Debbie Morgan and Darnell Williams, back together in January 2008. After all those years, it was magic.
That must have been huge. They were the couple for so many.
Seeing them reunite was incredibly emotional. Lawrence Lau even popped back in as Greg Nelson for their wedding. A great nod to the past.
But even that couldn't stop the ratings slide.
Unfortunately, no. The show hit record lows. Charles Pratt Jr. came in as head writer in May 2008.
What did they try under him?
Some interesting things. A special unscripted episode with veteran actors talking about their experiences. They marked the 10,000th episode in November '08 with Agnes Nixon appearing.
And wasn't there a tribute to Eileen Hurley? Myrtle Fargate?
Yes, she had sadly passed away. They did a tribute within the 10,000th episode and then a whole special episode dedicated to Myrtle in December '08. Very touching.
Those tributes are important. And in 2009, another historic moment involving Bianca.
The first legal same-sex marriage on American daytime TV. Bianca married Reese Williams.
Another boundary push.
Absolutely. A significant milestone.
Yeah.
Eden Regal stayed on for guest spots after that, but left for good in 2010. But the writing changes. They just kept coming. Pratt was fired in November '09. At Agnes Nixon's request, Lorraine Broderick came back. Again. As interim head writer this time.
Okay, so entering the 2010s, the show hits a big milestone. 40 years.
January 2010. They did a special 40th anniversary episode, framed as a documentary hosted by Haley Santos, featuring lots of classic character cameos.
Nice way to celebrate, but also tinged with sadness.
Yeah. It marked the final appearances for Ray McDonnell and Mary Fickett as Joe and Ruth Martin as they retired. And heartbreakingly, it was James Mitchell's last time as Palmer Cortlandt. He passed away shortly after it aired.
Oh, wow. Losing him was enormous. Palmer was irreplaceable.
Truly a legend. David Treisman and Donna Swojewski then took over as co-head writers, aiming to honor the show's legacy.
And there was a specific tribute to James Mitchell.
Yes. In April 2010, Gillian Spencer, Daisy, Taylor Miller, Nina, and Caddy McLean, Dixie, returned for it. Walt Willey, Jackson, and Julia Barr, Brooke, also came back around this time.
And another huge departure, David Canary retired.
After more than 26 incredible years playing both Adam and Stewart, April 2010. The end of an era, really.
Wow. And Larry Keith, the original Nick Davis, also passed away that summer. So many original connections fading.
It felt like the show was losing its anchors. There was a big plot twist with David Hayward later that year, though.
He was murdered, or seemed to be.
Right. Seemingly unalived in September 2010, but then bam, reappeared alive and well in November during Greenlee's trial for his murder. All planned, of course.
Yeah.
Classic soap.
Got to keep him guessing. There were some recasts, too. Scott Chandler and Marissa Tasker.
Yeah, Adam Mayfield and Brittany Allen left. Daniel Cosgrove and Sarah Glendenning took over those roles in late 2010.
And the show had some real-world overlaps, too.
Debbie Morgan had to take time off for Lyme disease in early 2011, but thankfully returned. The cast went on Oprah, Susan Lucci, others. They even surprised Erica with some of her former husbands.
That must have been fun.
And they did a funny crossover with the sitcom Hot in Cleveland. Those moments showed the show still had cultural reach.
But the ground was shifting under daytime TV. Lorraine Broderick was named head writer again in April 2011.
And then, just days later, the announcement. April 14th, 2011.
Yeah.
ABC cancels All My Children after 41 years, and One Life to Live Too.
Why? What was the official reason?
They cited extensive research and changing viewing patterns, said viewers wanted different kinds of daytime programming. They planned to replace the soaps with The Chew, a food talk show.
Their reaction must have been intense.
Oh, monumental. Fans were devastated. And get this, Hoover, the vacuum company, a longtime advertiser, pulled all their ads from ABC programming in protest. They even launched a campaign to save the soaps.
Wow. That's loyalty.
It shows how deeply connected people felt. As the final ABC episodes neared, a ton of former stars came back for a last hurrah.
It was like a reunion special every day. Caddy McLean, Ray McDonnell, Lee Merriweather, David Canary, Julia Barr, Josh Duhamel, Carol Burnett.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar, playing a character who thought she saw vampires. A perfect little nod to Buffy for the fans.
Amazing. They also dedicated an episode near the end to Mary Fickett, original Ruth Martin, who had just passed away.
A fitting tribute.
Right.
Then the final ABC episode aired, September 23, 2011, and it ended.
On a massive cliffhanger.
Totally unresolved. Joe and Ruth were back. Adam and Brooke returned, with Stuart Chandler apparently resurrected.
Wait, Stuart was back from the unalived?
Apparently so. Jackson and Erica broke up again. But the big shocker, J.R. Chandler, drunk and unstable, pointed a gun at the whole crowd at the Chandler mansion.
And fade to black. We never saw who got shot, leaving the door open for the next chapter.
Which turned out to be online. A huge gamble. On July 7, 2011, it was announced that Prospect Park, a production company, had licensed the rights from ABC to continue both AMC and One Life to live online.
On their new platform, TLLN, the online network, making them the first soaps to try and make that jump from broadcast to the internet. ABC still owned them, though.
Prospect Park wanted to launch fast, like September 2011, right after the ABC finale. But they hit roadblocks immediately.
What kind of problems?
Mostly negotiating new contracts. This was uncharted territory for the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, and the Writers Union, WGA. figuring out pay scales, residuals, working conditions for online-only production. It's complicated.
So they couldn't get the actor signed on.
Not enough initially. Only Cameron Matheson, Ryan, and Lindsay Hartley, Kara, were confirmed early on. Plus, there were issues securing enough funding for the production scale needed.
So the initial plan stalled.
Yeah, in November 2011, they had to suspend the revival plans. It looked like it might not happen after all. The unions expressed disappointment.
But then hope resurfaced.
Over a year later, December 2012, the plans were back on. They found a studio in Stamford, Connecticut.
And this time, more cast members committed.
A lot more. Lindsay Hartley, Vincent Irizarry, David, Debbie Morgan, Angie, Darnell Williams, Jesse, Jill Larson, Opal. Even David Canary agreed to return as Stewart. Julia Barr, Brooke, was back. Limited returns from Susan Lucci and Eden Regal were also announced.
And new actors for aged-up characters or new roles.
Right. Ryan Biddle took over as J.R. Robert Scott Wilson as Pete Cortland, Eric Nelson as A.J. Chandler, Denise Tance as Bianca's daughter Miranda, and new characters played by Sal Stowers and Jordan Lane Price.
So January 2013, it's official. They struck deals with the unions. Ginger Smith, an AMC veteran, was EP with Agnes Nixon Consulting, 30-minute episodes.
Available on Hulu, Hulu Plus, and iTunes. They initially ordered 220 episodes. Big commitment. Started airing Monday, Thursday, with a Friday recap show, More All My Children. Production began Feb 2013.
But even online, they hit bumps. Schedule changes.
Yeah, pretty quickly. May 2013, they realized online viewers weren't necessarily watching daily like broadcast, more like binging or catching up a couple times a week.
So they adjusted.
Shifted AMC to Mondays and Wednesdays, OLTL Tuesdays and Thursdays, combined the recap show. Unfortunately, that change meant FX Canada dropped them, as their deal was for 4 eps a week. But the episodes did go up on YouTube worldwide later.
And another head writer change.
Yep, Lisa Connor and Chip Hayes took over in May 13. Then a labor dispute with the IATS union caused a brief production hiatus in June.
More hurdles.
They resolved it, resumed filming in August. They also switched the release schedule again in July, dropping all the week's episodes on Mondays, which seemed to suit online habits better.
And didn't Oprah's network pick it up for a bit?
Oh, WN, yeah. They aired the revival for a 10-week limited run in the summer of 2013. Gave it some broadcast exposure.
But ultimately, it wasn't enough.
Sadly, no. The online season finale aired September 2, 2013. By November, Prospect Park indicated production was suspending again. It was effectively the second cancellation.
How many episodes did they actually make online?
Only 40, a fraction of the planned 220. It was a bold experiment, really ahead of its time in some ways, but the financial and logistical challenges were just too great.
And eventually the rights went back to ABC.
Yes, in December 2016, after a lawsuit between Prospect Park and ABC was settled. So Pine Valley was back under ABC's control, but dormant.
But maybe not forever. There have been whispers, right?
More than whispers. In December 2020, reports surfaced about a primetime sequel series in development at ABC, possibly called Pine Valley.
Really? What was the concept?
Sounded like it would focus on a new generation, maybe a young journalist uncovering secrets, getting caught in the Candesantos family feud. Mark Consuelos and Kelly Ripa were attached as executive producers. The plan was reportedly to invite former cast members back, too.
That sounds intriguing, a way to bridge the past and future.
It does. That project seems to have stalled for now, but then just recently, September 2024, news of an All My Children holiday movie.
It's your Lifetime.
Yep. In development for Lifetime. So even if a full series isn't happening right now, there's still active interest in bringing these characters back in some form.
It just shows the enduring legacy, doesn't it? From 1970, starting slow, hitting #1.
Consistently #2 through the 80s and early 90s.
Then the slow decline in the 2000s, hitting those record lows.
But getting a boost in that final ABC week, beating other canceled soaps in the ratings then.
And even the online version had decent numbers initially on Hulu and OWN. It's been a real roller coaster.
Internationally, too. It aired in several countries over the years, though often canceled there, too, eventually. The broadcasting landscape changed so much.
And the awards. It wasn't just popular, it was critically acclaimed.
Hugely. Something like 360 Daytime Emmy nominations over its run. Multiple wins for Outstanding Drama Series.
And the acting Emmys. David Canary, Susan Lucci finally getting hers after all those nominations, Dorothy Lyman, Darnell Williams,
Debbie Morgan, Julia Barr, Josh Duhamel, Michael E. Knight, Kathy McLean, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Eden Regal, Brittany Allen. So many talented people recognized.
Lifetime Achievement Awards for Ray McDonnell, Ruth Warrick, Agnes Nixon, wins for writing, directing.
Even a Gile-led Media Award nomination for Outstanding Daily Drama in 2010 for Bianca's storyline. And Denise Tots won an Emmy for Best Original Song for the online revival in 2014.
It left a real cultural footprint beyond TV, too. Merchandising, games. It even popped up as a plot point on Friends.
And the crossovers. Characters like Ray Cummings, Skye Chandler, Alex Merrick moving between AMC, One Life to Live, and General Hospital. It created this whole shared ABC daytime universe for a while.
So when you look back at this whole massive, sprawling saga, what stands out?
For me, it's the boldness. Agnes Nixon's initial vision to blend entertainment with social relevance. They tackled things other shows wouldn't dare touch, especially in the early years. Vietnam, terminated pregnancy, AIDS, homosexuality.
And they created characters that felt real, even in the midst of melodrama. Erica, Tad, Jesse, Angie, Adam, Stewart, Brooke, Palmer. You felt like you knew them. Their struggles resonated.
Exactly. It wasn't just escapism. It reflected real life, amplified. That's why people cared so deeply. It was part of their daily lives for decades.
And the fact we're still talking about it, that there are potential revivals in movies, it speaks to that lasting power. Which raises a question, doesn't it?
What's the future for shows like this?
Yeah. Can that magic of a daily serial, that deep connection, be replicated in a primetime series or a holiday movie, or was the format itself part of the magic? What do you think classic soaps should look like now?
That's the million-dollar question. Media consumption is so different now, binge-watching, streaming. But the core desire for those long-form, character-rich stories, maybe it's still there. Finding the right platform, the right format. It's a challenge. But maybe the Pine Valley story isn't completely over.
We'll have to wait and see. If you enjoyed this deep dive into All My Children, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment letting us know your favorite Pine Valley memory.
We'd really love to hear which characters or storylines stuck with you over the years.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.